God bless you, dear students. So here we are going to begin with the second part of the story, Across the Fence. Now I'm going to read the further remaining paragraphs. So here we begin. Shambal stopped walking and stared at him. But Papa, he said, you said you would help me find him. So Bruno kept his word, and the two boys spent an hour and a half searching the camp looking for evidence. They weren't sure exactly what they were looking for, but Bruno kept stating that a good explorer would know it when he found it. But they didn't find anything at all all that might give them a clue to Shambal's papa's disappearance, and it started to get darker. So here now Shambal stopped walking and looked at him for a long time, and surprisingly he asked Bruno about to help him to find his papa. So Bruno did as he had promised, and they both spent an hour and a half there searching the camp and looking for the facts and signs. And Bruno kept saying that a good explorer always know it when he found, although they couldn't find anything, and so they got a clue due to such things that Shambal's papa has disappeared, and also it started to get darker. Okay, now the next. I'm sorry, Shambal, Bruno said eventually. Shambal nodded his head sadly. Eventually means finally or after a long time. He wasn't really surprised, but it had been nice having his friend over to see where he lived all the same. I think I ought to go home now, said Bruno. Will you walk back to the fence with me? Shambal opened his mouth to answer, but right at the moment there was a loud whistle and 10 soldiers surrounded the area in which Bruno and Shambal were standing. Okay, so here finally Bruno said sorry to Shambal, and so Shambal moved his head down just in a sad manner. But he was not surprised because he felt nice to having his friend Bruno. Then Bruno said that he is thinking to go home now, and he asked Shambal if he will walk back to the fence with him. And as Shambal was about to answer, at that moment they heard a loud whistle. And then where both these boys were standing, it was surrounded by 10 soldiers. Okay, now let's see. What's happening? Whispered Bruno. What's going on? It happens sometimes, said Shambal. They make people go on marches. Marches, said Bruno, shocked. I can't go on a march. I have to be home in time for dinner, said Shambal, putting a finger to his lips. Don't say anything or they get angry. The whistles blew again, and this time the group of people from their part of the camp, about 100, started to march slowly together, with Bruno and Shambal held together unseen in the center. Okay, so now this Bruno whispering to Shambal that what's going on, and Shambal told him that it happens sometimes as the soldiers make those people to go on marches. Then Bruno shocked and said that he couldn't go on a march as he had to be at home in time for dinner. Then Shambal told him to be quiet and not to make any noise, as those soldiers would get angry. Now again the whistles blew, and the group of 100 people from their part of the camp started to march slowly together, and these two boys, Bruno and Shambal, were unseen, as they were also there in the center. Okay. Now, there was some sort of disturbance towards the back, where some people seemed unwilling to march, but Bruno was too small to see. All he heard were loud noise, but he couldn't make out what they were. "Does the marching go on for long?" he whispered, because he was beginning to feel quite hungry now. "I don't think so," said Shamwal. "I never see the people after they have gone on a march, but I wouldn't imagine it does." Okay, so now there was some kind of disturbance towards the back, because some people were not willing to march, and this Bruno, he wanted to see it, but he was too small to see all these, and only he could hear the loud noises, but he couldn't make out what they were. And Bruno felt quite hungry. Then so he whispered to Shamwal that how long the marching go on. Then Shamwal said that he never saw the people. After all this, they have gone on a march, so he wouldn't imagine whether it would be or not. Okay. Bruno frowned. He looked up at the sky and he heard thunder overhead. Frown means by making lines appear on forehead. The sky seemed to grow even darker, almost black, and rain poured down even more heavily than it had that morning. Bruno closed his eyes for a moment and felt it wash over him. "That's it," he said to Shamwal. "I'm going to catch a cold out here. I have to go home." So this Bruno brought his eyebrows together in displeasure, and he just looked up the sky, where he heard thunder, and the sky was getting darker, and it started raining heavily in comparison of that morning. Then Bruno just closed his eyes and felt that it washed over him. And he said to Shamwal that he is going to catch a cold, so he had to go home. Okay. And now, but just as he said this, his feet brought him up a set of steps. As he marched on, he found there was no more rain coming down anymore, because they were all piling into a long room that was surprisingly warm and must have been very securely built, because no rain was getting in anywhere. In fact, it felt completely airtight. Okay, piling means moved together, especially in an uncontrolled way, and securely means solidly. "Well, that's something," he said, glad to be out of the storm for a few minutes at least. "I expect we will have to wait here till it eases off, and then I will get to go home." Shamwal gathered himself very close to Bruno and looked up at him in fright. "I'm sorry we didn't find your papa," said Bruno. "It's all right," said Shamwal. "You are my best friend, Shamwal," said Bruno. "My best friend for life." Okay, then as he said this, he found that while marching, his feet brought him up the stairs, and he found that it was not raining anymore, and as all the group of people just moved together into that long room, so it was warm and solidly built, as no rain was getting there, and it was completely airtight. And then Bruno, he was just glad when they were out of the storm for a few minutes, and he expected that they would have to wait till the storm become less, and then he would go home. Then Shamble came closer to Bruno and looked at him in fright, and then Bruno apologized to Shamble for not finding his father and tells Shamble that he is his best friend for life. So here this story of two boys, Bruno and Shamble, comes to an end, and we came to know about their innocent friendship. So hope you all understand. Now as usual, your homework just to learn the word meanings and the question answers which you will be getting, please write down in your notebook. And children, you all will get the link of this chapter's question answers in this video's description box. And one more thing I want to tell you, that after opening the link, you all have to send the request only once, and after some time you will get the access automatically. Okay, now we will meet with the next new chapter in the next video. So till then, just be safe and all the best.